Before the video begins, I just want to say from the awakening frequency to all of you, our hearts go out to the ones who have been impacted the most by this pandemic. It's extremely unfortunate what has happened, and it's even more unfortunate that we have the type of people that try to take advantage of the situation among us. They only think of themselves and do not care for the rest of humanity. We also have those who are deliberately trying to infect people because they've been infected. Instead of seeking help, they're angry that they've been infected and are blaming the world. We all need to raise our vibrational frequency and overcome the limitations our bodies have built in. Only then can we elevate, and only then will we be ready to learn all that humanity is truly capable of. Stay positive. Hello, my YouTube family. This is your wake-up call. So in part 3 of this series, I'm going to touch on some of the dark rumors and the evil, heartless politicians who benefited financially from the coronavirus. So let's jump right into it. Coronavirus rumors have been quite disturbing. One of the first ones that have been circulating is usually delivered in text messages, WhatsApp, etc. It states that a friend of someone alerted the individual who works on the emergency management team or police or some other agency that a major coronavirus-related change is coming. Don't get me wrong, I forwarded a couple of these before applying logic to the situation. I justified it to myself stating, I don't know if it's true, so I'll forward it just in case. By doing that, I was spreading the same hysteria that I'm trying to prevent, and for that, I apologize to all of you. I should have done a better job researching. Both the mayor and NYPD has since come out and said this particular rumor is not true. Here's another version of the tweet. These in particular are causing panic for New Yorkers facing the coronavirus pandemic, and as we know, they've just become the epicenter of the pandemic in America. Another one is the promise of a national quarantine. This is also most likely a corona-related rumor and has been addressed. Here's an audio recording about a quarantine that's been going around. I actually received this myself.
You guys, just wanted to give you a crucial update. So my cousin that works for the Pentagon, my aunt that lives in D.C., and my friend that works for the government in Knoxville, between last night and today, I've had 3 people notify me that has not been announced yet, but the U.S. is about to go on a 4-week quarantine, which means you cannot leave your home. You can't go to anywhere that you can do sales transactions like grocery stores, shopping, movies, anything like that. So in about 2 weeks, 1 to 2 weeks, they're going to announce this shutdown. Once the shutdown is in place or the warning, everything from the grocery store is going to be cleared out. At this time, it's critical that you stock up on canned goods, frozen foods, things that you'll be able to survive off of 2 weeks from or 4 weeks for. Toilet tissue, paper towels. It's bigger than just Clorox and bleach. You got to be able to feed the family.
We also have false promises of a cure. Jim Bakker is back on television and now selling freeze-dried foods marketed to preppers. But what's gotten him into trouble recently is when he had Cheryl Selman of the Silver Edge Company on his show. The two of them are selling the silver solution that they claim cures the coronavirus. During a February 12 episode of the Jim Bakker Show, Selman claimed the so-called silver solution was able to eliminate some strains of the coronavirus. When asked if the silver solution would be effective against COVID-19 specifically, Selman replied, "Let's say it hasn't been tested on this strain of the coronavirus, but it's been tested on other strains of the coronavirus and it has been able to eliminate it within 12 hours. Now, this is not my area of expertise, so I can't tell you anything about it. What I can say is that I would not go to Jim Bakker, who was convicted of 9 fraud and conspiracy counts for medical cures. That's all I'm going to say about that. On top of that, fake emails are pretending to be from various HR departments. There are some posts claiming water flushes the virus down your throat where it is killed by the stomach acid. And supposedly there was a video on YouTube telling people to inhale hot air from a hairdryer, and that supposedly killed the coronavirus. On top of that, there are variations of this message telling people to watch out for CDC imposters. This is often changed depending on where it's received. Look, there's a lot of these at the links below, and you should visit the sites to become familiar with the scams. But let's be honest. If you're thinking of inhaling hot air from a hairdryer to kill a virus, maybe the virus isn't the worst thing wrong with you. So let's move to a favorite target of mine: greedy and deceptive politicians. Some senators dumped millions in stock after a closed-door briefing on the coronavirus. Senators Richard Burr, Republican, North Carolina; James Inhofe, Republican, Oklahoma; Dianne Feinstein, Democrat, California; and Kelly Loeffler, Republican, Georgia, sold off millions of dollars in public stock following a closed-door briefing on the coronavirus in January, potentially violating the Stock Act, which prohibits congressional trading on non-public information. Now, those same politicians are fighting over the details in the stimulus package that will help so many people who are out of work and going through other hardships. Democrats are accusing Republicans and the Trump administration of trying to create a $500 billion corporate slush fund while failing to provide assurances for workers these same firms may lay off and shirking the needs of state and local governments that are on the front lines of the fight against the coronavirus. Republicans are accusing Democrats of trying to exploit the emergency to enact pro-worker and pro-environment provisions that aren't necessary to deal with the crisis. Listen, they don't care. They don't fight when voting themselves raises. They don't fight when voting to do anything that benefits them. It's you and I who they want to fight against. I keep saying they are flip sides of the same corrupt coin. Why do you think there is always a fight when it comes to raising the minimum wage? But we keep voting for the same type of lying, cheating, and stealing people to represent us, then have the nerve to be upset when they do what's in their nature. As if we haven't learned from the decades-long examples. Seriously? Is everyone aware of what it means when we do the same thing over and over again and expect different results? Congress has required its members to disclose their stock sales since the 2012 passage of the Stop Trading on Congressional Knowledge, or STOCK, Act, which was intended to prevent lawmakers from using inside information to profit. I don't think they care about the laws. What do you think? Burr's records show that on February 13th, he and his wife sold 33 different stocks that were collectively worth $628,000 to $1.7 million. Starting the day of the briefing, Loeffler and her husband Jeffrey Sprecher, who is chairman of the New York Stock Exchange, made 27 stock sales worth at least $1.2 million. Inhofe sold large stock holdings on January 27th in companies like PayPal and Apple, worth about $400,000. Feinstein and her husband sold between $1.5 million and $6 million in stock between January 31st and February 18th, according to disclosure reports. Maybe it's innocent, maybe it's not. One thing for sure is these people you all keep voting into office only care about putting money in their own pockets. So to all of you who keep voting them into office, has your salary grown as much as theirs over the past 24 years? The last thing I'll touch on is Event 201. Does anyone know what this is? I'll wait for you to think about it. Okay, Event 201 was a 3.5 hour pandemic tabletop exercise that simulated a series of dramatic, scenario-based facilitated discussions confronting difficult, true-to-life dilemmas associated with response to a hypothetical but scientifically plausible pandemic. In other words, they practiced the coronavirus outbreak we are currently living through. This took place in October 2019. The first case of the coronavirus was reported in December 2019. Watch these clips from the event and decide for yourself.
It began in healthy-looking pigs, months, perhaps years ago. A new coronavirus spread silently within herds. Gradually, farmers started getting sick. Infected people got a respiratory illness with symptoms ranging from mild flu-like signs to severe pneumonia. The sickest required intensive care. Many died. Experts agree, unless it is quickly controlled, it could lead to a severe pandemic, an outbreak that circles the globe and affects people everywhere.
The mission of the Pandemic Emergency Board is to provide recommendations to deal with the major global challenges arising in response to an unfolding pandemic. The board is comprised of highly experienced leaders from business, public health, and civil society.
We could be looking at double the number of cases in 1 week and 16 times as many in a month if we are not able to stop the spread. That would be on the order of 500,000 cases, and it would continue to rise exponentially. In 3 months, we could be approaching 10 million cases.
We're at the start of what's looking like it will be a severe pandemic. And there are problems emerging that can only be solved by global business and governments working together.
Public health agencies have issued travel advisories, while some countries have banned travel from the worst affected areas. As a result, the travel sector is taking a huge hit. Travel bookings are down 45%, and many flights have been canceled. A ripple effect is racing through the service sector. Governments that rely on travel and tourism as a large part of their economies are being hit particularly hard.
How should national leaders, businesses, and international organizations balance the risk of worsening disease that would be caused by the continued movement of people around the world against the risks of profound economic consequence of travel and trade bans?
If there's some sense that there's a UN institution that can do all of this, then I worry we're suffering from a delusional disorder on the power of the UN. It's really important to get those industries and their trade associations and an efficient leadership established, which is decentralized, but has a collective responsibility and accountability. And that needs to be supported by the public leadership.
What is essential, what is non-essential travel, we have to clarify this. Otherwise, if we go down to 20% bookings over a long period, the company will run down. That's a fact.
Yeah, there's a whole complex set of issues in a highly interdependent world on supply chains that are just in time. We need to think about how much flex there is in that just-in-time supply chain system and make sure it keeps running. I think it's going to take specificity, and it's going to take knowledge that only the private sector has. The UN can play an important coordinating facilitation role, but the companies know where those commodities are, where they move, how to move them. And that's where a type of public-private collaboration that we have not generally had in these crises needs to be put together pretty quickly.
We are not out of money yet. But the fact is we are trending in a dangerous direction and something needs to change.
So the policy question for this board now is how should financial resources be prioritized? Are there nodes that we cannot allow to fail? What is your sense of priorities? We don't have money to pay for all of these urgent problems.
So at the moment, we want the funds, right? You need the money. So where's the money? So government kind of supplies some money. A lot of, private sectors, some are sitting here, you have some money, but now you need a really coordinated, centralized efforts.
Hotels will be experiencing, crippling losses doing that. And we know that the hotel business in itself makes up 5% of the GDP.
Governments need to be willing to do things that are out of their historical perspective, or for the most part, it's really a war footing that we need to be on.
We shouldn't underestimate the power of entrepreneurship. We need to escalate that, whether it's through the government's helping with tax breaks or subsidies of that nature to increase manufacturing of those types of products. It can happen quickly. A Marshall-type plan, don't mean to say that exactly, but a Marshall plan that can go into effect can stimulate change very quickly.
Countries are reacting in different ways as to how best to manage the overwhelming amounts of dis and misinformation circulating over the internet. In some cases, limited internet shutdowns are being implemented to quell panic.
How much control of information should there be, and by whom? And how can false information be effectively challenged? And what if that false information is coming from companies or from governments?
I think it's very important that we make sure that there is concise communication with all healthcare facilities where these patients are being treated so that there isn't mass panic.
We're at a moment where the social media platforms have to step forward and recognize the moment to assert that they're a technology platform and not a broadcaster is over. They, in fact, have to be a participant in broadcasting accurate information and partnering with the scientific and health communities to counterweight, if not flood the zone of accurate information, because to put the genie back in the bottle of the misinformation and disinformation is nigh impossible.
One thing we haven't spoken about, and I'm wondering whether it's time to talk about this, is a step up from the part of the governments on enforcement actions against fake news.
I personally do not believe that trying to shut things down in terms of information is either practical or desirable. And we do have, I think, a couple of strategies that are available to us, one of which is the flood strategy, second of which is relying and informing and equipping trusted sources of information with the facts so they can then pass that on. But we also need to actually think about a technological answer to this.
The outcome of the CAPS pandemic in Event 201 was catastrophic. 65 million people died in the first 18 months. The outbreak was small at first and initially seemed controllable, but then it started spreading in densely crowded and impoverished neighborhoods of megacities. From that point on, the spread of the disease was explosive. Within 6 months, cases were occurring in nearly every country. The global economy was in a free fall. The GDP down 11%. Stock markets around the world plummeted between 20 and 40% and headed into a downward cycle of fear and low expectation. Businesses were not borrowing, banks were not lending. Everyone was just hoping to hunker down and weather the storm. Economists say the economic turmoil caused by such a pandemic will last for years, perhaps a decade. The societal impacts, the loss of faith in government, the distrust of news, and the breakdown of social cohesion could last even longer. We have to ask, did this need to be so bad? Are there things we could have done in the 5 to 10 years leading up to the pandemic that would have lessened the catastrophic consequences? We believe the answer is yes. So, are we as a global community now finally ready to do the hard work needed to prepare for the next pandemic?
Prediction? You decide. This could all be a coincidence or a wonderful bit of timing to practice this right before the real outbreak. I don't have an opinion. I'll leave it to you. But see how it kind of follows the path that our current situation played out in? Okay, this is going to be my last coronavirus video. At this point, I've given you all so much details and so many places for you to start your own research. Just remember what I've said many times. Follow the money, find the corruption. Please keep your eyes open and don't believe everything you see or hear. This has been your wake-up call. This has been your wake-up call. Don't forget to subscribe, like, and share. Click the notification bell so you will be notified when we upload new videos. Find the Awakening Frequency on Twitter and Instagram and also Facebook. We are the Awakening Frequency. Out of the millions of potential subscribers, we just want to reach one so each one can teach one. Peace.